Hello, my name is Justin Kern. I am the Division Communications Director for the Southwest and Rocky Mountains Division at the American Red Cross. And I'm going to record a conversational overview video here, hopefully no more than 10, 15 minutes, outlining our national communications strategies and teams and priorities, as well as the field level teams and priorities and tactics. So this isn't meant to cover absolutely everything, but hopefully it can give you an introduction into some of the people and some of the work that happens and some of the way that you can work together with us to make our good humanitarian work happen here. One of the ways that we're able to do this is through PowerPoint. And so you're going to get this Teams video recording from me. I'm going to walk through a slide deck here. Hopefully that can elucidate some of the finer points here as soon as I'm able to pull the deck up. So one moment, please. Play some weight music in your head, possibly. Right, so we'll begin this slide deck here. So talk through field communications a little bit quickly. What we mean in terms of field communications is the role that 100 plus communicators on staff, as well as our volunteers, in collaboration with everyone in the region, does to talk about our mission, to get people, to invite people into the work we do. There's been a lot of changes in the last few years on this space to really bring more kind of gravity back to the chapters and to the regions in this work. That is where a lot of the great ideas over the years tend to come from. This is where the bulk of our media work and a lot of our social and our storytelling really does come from the field level. And so we adjusted a lot of things that you'll see in some of the charts here. To make sure that not only was the support there for our communications teams in the field, but also that they were they knew kind of marching orders and priorities to cover our lines of service, our departments, and to reach as many people as possible in creative new ways. And so kind of looking bigger picture, here, we're talking about our marketing communication goals here. So at the national level, I'll show an org chart in a little bit here, but there is representation on the top level executive committee with marketing and communications. Under that, there are two kind of sections for support of the field, as well as of national campaigns and endeavors, where there's an external relations team. That's where I sit. And then there's a marketing team. Also on the side, there are some marketing support teams for our biomedical services and training services. All those teams work together, and really at the end of the day, the goal is to talk at the national level as well as support all of the great work the field is doing. Some of the things that we have for goals at the national level here, right, is to make sure that we're data driven. So we're driven to impact in what we do. We're trying to spend our time wisely, the donor dollar wisely, with our expertise and talents here. We want to motivate folks in a personal way, in a touching way, to get involved in our mission. Obviously, there's elements of reputation, protecting the brand and reputation. That's a big component of what we think about and what we spend our time at the national level. And then collaboration with all business units to make sure that we are doing right to support the growth of our financial metrics, of our blood collection distribution metrics, bringing people into courses like first aid and CPR, as well as bringing people in as volunteers. So some of the critical things we think about in these areas, how our teams are really broken up here, happen in kind of four sections. So I mentioned the two external relations and the marketing side of things. Under that, we've got our brand and creative teams. He sees the really great work out of our division here from our field communications team came up with this Los Donates campaign, worked with our national teams to make this happen. Now, this is one of the things that kind of leads our enterprise efforts to bring in more Hispanic and Latino blood donors, for instance, just under the brand and creative umbrella here. Our mods team, this is the team that does kind of research and analysis for us that really help us with the kind of reputation side of stuff, know how we're kind of being perceived publicly with all of our ways that we get out in the public with our storytelling and our campaigns. The digital side of things, so this is our, our web presence, and the work in that space, as well as kind of monitoring different trends in that space, thinking about kind of the AI type of things. And then lastly, but certainly not least, our communications functions. So the outreach we do with our media partners, for instance, to tell our story, to talk about the things that people can do to get involved in our mission. So some of the questions on the left you'll see here of how we kind of that really propel some of the work we do in these 4 areas. I won't read through all of this, but I think you can kind of get an idea that what our work boils down to these real 3 areas. I think as we're thinking through FY27, that's kind of where some of our current planning is. Again, this is recording this for January 2026. There's obviously some changes that could happen along the way. And, but we are big on planning and preparation, obviously, as you'd think from a disaster organization standpoint. So these are the best plans I'm able to share right now, but certainly to talk about the latest and greatest, your division communications director, that's myself in this instance from Missouri and Arkansas, are a great first stop to talk through the national strategies, the latest and greatest there, as well as what you want to do locally with strategies and tactics. But we think about it in kind of boiling down to 3 main buckets here. So people and team, so developing our folks, making sure our folks reflect the communities we serve, and enhancing kind of the engaging aspects of what it means to be a Red Crosser. The mission side of things, so supporting everything our lines of service and business units are involved with, things that are mission critical for that kind of blood, time, money aspect of everything we do. And then speaking of the money side of things, right, kind of working to make sure that we are on top of the latest emerging needs that our teams in the fundraising field, what they need, what they have, where we can work together both locally and nationally to enhance that invitation for people to share their generosity and make our mission possible. Some metrics, just a little dated here, but I think it give you a ballpark from the national side of things. Really robust national media, social media channels that we've got national channels, we've got regional channels for our social accounts. Same with our media outreach. Our national teams have relationships with national media. Think CBS. Our local teams, you would have relationship with your St. Louis or your Little Rock CBS station. So, but that amounts to millions of kind of the media side of things, many posts to our channels. And lots of content, both on the storytelling front as well as on the social media front. Drilling down to our division, we are a big contributor to all those figures, so won't walk through all those here, but just so you have reference, we play into a lot of that. Like I mentioned before, a lot of the hard work that happens at the national level, the reason we have such a great brand recognition reputation really happens because of the work that happens every single day in the field. Reflecting on some of that here. So 3/4 of people in the US have a favorable impression. Look at we're not in competition certainly with the American Heart, Salvation Army, United Way, but those are our peers in this industry space, and we tend to rank very highly. And a lot of that is because of the earned role that we have in helping to make impact in communities in lots of different ways, and amplifying that in really good ways, telling that story in a people-centered manner, nationally and locally, is the reason that we have such good marks in this space. I'd also add that we are presently ranking as the number 3 most recognized and trusted nonprofit in the United States. And I would also say that when you would do a search on, a web search or in an AI like a ChatGPT or Copilot, the American Red Cross regularly ranks very highly in all the areas we'd want to in a favorable way. So some of the team and tactics. This is your present national external relations team. You'll see me at the bottom left. But a couple different categories I would point out here. So Chris Kuchenmeister is our vice president under the external relations banner. He reports to Rosie McGillen, who is at the national level handling the communications and marketing space under this external relations team, one that communicators and the regions would work with most closely in a lot of ways. Are kind of four target areas. So there's external relations as it relates to media relations and field communications. So that's 6 division communications director, including myself, as well as our colleague Nicole, who runs national media relations and a lot of the strategy and support at that level. You have enterprise communications, and so that covers our campaign work, our internal communications, some of the work we do with the fundraising teams, the things you'll see on our website and web presence from the editorial functions, some of our analysis in monitoring and reporting, as well as our historical archive work. Thirdly, you've got lines of service communications. So these are specific to the lines of service, thinking about biomedical services, training services, service to the armed forces, and international services, as well as our work in the multicultural communication space. And then, of course, disaster, our dedicated folks in the disaster front. And then fourth, the on the right there, the content and channel strategy side of things. So you see our team that handles social media and storytelling in that sphere. You see the photo and video teams and their work in that space. So those are the folks supporting you and doing a lot of the national stuff. This is how it connects down to the field here. So you've got 4 communicators in the Missouri and Arkansas region, and I am in the green box in the middle. I'm your division communications director. I have connections to the division vice president, so the regional executive, the CEO of the region. Their boss is someone that I'm in regular communications with, as well as your regional donor services executive, who handles a lot of the blood collection and distribution. Their boss at the division level, I'm in connection with on our kind of plane there. And then, but my regular contact usually is the regional communications director. So in supporting the region, that's my main channel, in lockstep with the RE and the priorities there. And then the director is the one that really helps to run and drive strategy, as well as the air traffic control, let's call it, for their team, including their volunteers. So again, you've got 4 in the Missouri-Arkansas region. So you've got the director that sits on the regional leadership team and is the real thought leader for communications in the region there. And under them, there are 2 managers in your 2-state region, as well as a development communications manager. And some of the functions of that are really to ensure support. The reason you would have 4 folks in your region is to make sure that in particular, the blood services, the biomedical services side of things are amply supported, given the number of large-scale blood drives and the collection footprint you have there, as well as the financial donation and support footprint. That is why you've got the development communications function there. We'll talk about that in a second here. Also under that director, you'll find your public affairs volunteers, right? 90% of what we do is volunteer-led. That includes our public affairs functions. And so what does that mean for the actual work, right? So you've got, the director leading strategy, but there's, what feeds into that strategy and how do you determine the tactics? So about 3/4 of your time, as it usually breaks out, is kind of utilizing media relations, our partners in the media, as well as our social media and other storytelling functions, really to focus on the disaster side of things, to support preparedness, response and recovery and the disaster front with communications, to recruit volunteers to bring people into our mission in that function, and then to invite people to share their generosity with us as blood donors and or as financial supporters of the American Red Cross. If you feel like you're looking for some prioritization, this would be my pro tip here. This is really your time and your team's time. Come back to this as a baseline of how your time is broken out when you're trying to call balls and strikes on all the things that are happening day to day in the region there. I think you've got 3/4 of your time there. You got 15% of your time in these other functions. Now, this may be really different from a lot of other nonprofits you would see, and I think this probably plays into the fact that there is we're a matrix environment. We have a lot of brand guidelines and protections. Um, so there's a lot of things that our teams are served up, or that they are expected to use and reuse here, and that there may not be as much of some of the functions you'll see in this 15% bucket as you might see at some other nonprofits. But this is how it does tend to break out in a lot of the regions. Again, these percentages can be they're flexible in terms of what the regional executive and what the national priorities may be, but this is just kind of a guiding line, if you will. And so, if you've got 3/4 of your time on volunteerism, blood, money, and disaster, you've got about 15% for some of the internal stuff, some of the marketing things, some of the direct fundraising support, which you have a unique role in with the development comms manager there, who spends about half their time supporting directly that team, as well as our lines of service like training services, service to the armed forces, and international services. Then, of course, the ever exciting, ever nebulous 10% other duties as assigned. This could be whatever kind of the regional priorities are. I know we've got community mobilization happening in lots of ways. And so this is maybe for the director more on the strategy side of things with your department. This is maybe 10% with your managers on areas of where they maybe have stronger skill sets, maybe some professional development, different ways that they can support the region. So this is just a chart that reminds you that we're really a focal point here for all of the requests and needs for at the regional level. We got everyone that will be coming to you, and you will be collaborating with them. Another pro tip here is just the regions that are able to really, you've got prioritization was my previous pro tip. I think this one, I would say collaboration is key here. Having really good relationships and understanding of goals, both yours and theirs, can really help with that prioritization and with kind of the bandwidth and capacity challenges that may come up with this kind of with the support that the comms teams have at the regional level. So the main objectives you have to just consider here, media relations really is key for us. That's working in the PR front, having really good relationships in what we would call blue sky or gray sky goes a long way. And so feeding that part of what we do in that third party validation in an era of lots of mistrust and misinformation and disinformation, in an era where people are having a hard time determining what may even be real. It becomes where people have a large mistrust of large institutions. Having that third-party validation and working with our media partners is ever important, and being able to feed them great stories when they are constrained and dealing with a lot of those things too. Super important and kind of on the cusp of an emerging, changing space here. The social side of things as well, right? We know how fraught social media can be, but getting out in front of good stories, telling the good work and inviting people to get in, battling back on mis and disinformation, and getting involved on the community front. Those tools and ways that we can be creative. Some of the social media stuff here is some of the most important stuff we're doing. I think trying to find that balance of all our lines of service and priorities, right? I think if you do 2/5 of your time working on disaster, 2/5 of your time working on blood collection and distribution, and 1/5 on SAF training services and international, I think that breakout usually tends to support that balance that we're trying to seek. Never perfect. We'll change lots of times when we've got disasters or appeals, but just a kind of a guiding light there. And then making sure you're engaged with your volunteers as well as the volunteers out there doing the work. They are the face and people in our communities. And so they can help with the amplification of local voices and giving them the opportunity to tell our story in a way that oftentimes is better than a spokesperson, our staff spokespeople could ever tell it. I won't go through every line here, but we really do. We spend a lot of our time in the external side of things, as you kind of heard me talk about before. Um, and so the kind of the three main areas there: media relations, social media, and storytelling. Those can happen in lots of ways. This is where a lot of the creativity comes into place. This is where a lot of your prioritization and your collaboration pay off here. And this is where you can highlight local impact. This is something we're going to look to more, both with our stories alongside partners, as well as amplifying the voices of the people that we're collaborating with, or who are directly impacted, benefiting from, and helping the Red Cross mission happen in every area of the country, but in particular areas where we're focusing on. So, use the storytelling in that fashion, right? It can be an absolute conduit to making the most out of your time, as well as the impact of the work we have out there. And then of course secondary, right? I think the internal side of things, it's not to get lost. And but there are, we may send too many emails, frankly. So there's lots of national emails and updates and that kind of thing. But being a good partner in your region and sharing in the way that fits best with the needs there, without having folks drowned in maybe emails or messages. Finding that balance is important, and something you can work on with your regional executive, especially the director and the regional executive, to find that sweet spot. A few things just when you're working, a couple ideas around collaboration opportunities here as we're getting near the kind of close of the slide deck here, and I'll leave with a couple of overarching thoughts too. But I think we've got 5 C's that kind of guide us, and collaboration is a huge one for the communicators. As much as folks who aren't on the comms team can invite us in, can make sure they're sharing their information and ideas, and trying to help us think editorially across everything the Red Cross does, the better. That may involve a lot of meetings and updates, but that's okay. That's I think on that front we'd rather be informed and knowledgeable of what's going on, so we can make the best use of people time and energy to get the story out and to let people know. It's just super important. So always aim for that. If you're not on the communications team, if you are on the communications team, this is my other pro tip here. You have to be an active participant in your own rescue here. So make sure that you are letting your teams know how to get in touch with you, that you have maybe certain gaps or obstacles in finding information. Talk with your division communications director. There's lots of resources and paths to find this information. You'll find a couple other videos that I'm going to record here that will get more to the tactics and more the information finding side of things. But don't be shy and ask around. The Red Cross has been around for a while, and there's lots of information and good resources out there. So don't be shy about asking for them if you feel like you're not getting them. Communications, there's some plans we ask you to put in place, and so just know that that planning shouldn't happen in a vacuum. In fact, some of the best strategic plans we have, crisis comms plans we have, really happen with work throughout your regional team, as well as relying on some of the resources and expertise from our national colleagues here. And I think in particular, the communications director really wants to make sure that they have that seat at the table where they're the trusted voice on the regional leadership team. That includes working with the RE, with the chief development officer, with your executive directors, your RDSE on the blood side of things, your volunteer services folks, and your SAF ISD folks. And as well as your disaster. I think I left disaster out there, but and then lastly, just kind of reiterating the top point: share. A few extra best practices here. So we invite you to for especially for non-communications folks, invite them to come to you as a communicator with their goal. A lot of times they may come because they see a tactic or they see something on social media, but really seek a goal first kind of perspective here that can help you kind of size up what may already be available, where there's some creativity, and where you can fit it into your work stream in prioritization here. Earlier is better, of course. As much lead time as possible is really huge, especially given the fact that the disasters can strike at any time. In Missouri and Arkansas, I think we tend to see them in the spring pretty often, but you never can tell these days. And so earlier is always better. And then we've got request forms. Certainly, we'll talk about some of these resources in one of the other videos here, but there's a humanitarian communication support form. There is biomedical support form. And as early as folks can get those filled out into the comms team, the better they can do for, or the better for their planning. So that's a little bit from the slide deck here. I've gone a little longer than I thought I would. So sorry about that, but hopefully informative, hopefully gives an overview of the communications folks. I think a couple things I'll reiterate here. Prioritization is one of the hardest things for any role at the Red Cross. That includes the communications department. And so working with the folks who guide you, like myself, a division communications director, but especially your direct supervisor, your regional executive, and alongside your regional leadership team to help size up that prioritization goes a long way to having you ready for the everyday as well as the unexpected. I think secondly, being an open collaborator and inviting other folks to be the same will help you make sure you have the things you need and that they know kind of your needs and marching orders. And I think thirdly, I would say be curious in kind of what you're doing. Be curious in how we can make an impact in communities, how we can look at things new ways, because it is true that so much of the innovation at the Red Cross and the reason we've been able to be so successful for nearly 150 years is because folks on the ground realized there was a gap or an opportunity and thought through a way to address it. And that can start right with you. That's what makes part of this work so exciting. That's why you choose to work here and do good work. And so don't lose that curiosity, because you'll find a lot of great camaraderie in that, and a lot of great opportunity to tell some amazing stories. We'll share some other videos that have some more direct tactical stuff from resource finding, that kind of stuff, and so just know that. But I think a good starting point, your division communications director can certainly help walk through some elements there. Your curiosity and interest in finding prioritization and collaboration with your regional leadership team is huge. And then certainly the work you put together with your own communications team, staff, and volunteers is really the secret to why we have such a role and such a presence, not just in Missouri and Arkansas for everything that happens there, but across the entire country. So thank you for the emphasis and talent that you share, along with your compassion in that space. And I appreciate you watching this and all the other videos in this series. Cheers.